Hold Still by Nina LaCour. I have found a good Nina LaCour book. This is my fourth Nina LaCour book. It's actually her debut, but I have read Everything Leads to You, You Know Me Well, We Are Okay, and now Hold Still. She has a couple other books out that I will be reading, but this one so far is by far my favorite. This actually came out in 2009. I didn't realize Nina LaCour had been around for so long. Not a good sign that it's all been downhill from here. I don't hate Nina LaCour. A lot of her books are middling. All of the other books I've read have been like mid, maybe slightly below par. I didn't really like We Are Okay. That one was the only one that I didn't like. It's actually gonna be the one that I compare this one the most to. I think they have very similar themes and storylines in a way, but this book is significantly better at addressing them. I'm wondering if that's because this is a debut. You've maybe heard the phrase, you have your whole life to write your debut novel and 6 months to write the second. That's not an exact comparison. Apparently Nina LaCour has been publishing for 16 years, and she doesn't have 16 books out, so she takes more than 6 months between books. But it's the idea that your debut novel is the one you put all of your love into. You can tweak that and edit that and work on that forever and ever before, it goes to publishers, or before it's finally in a state where it's good enough to be accepted by a publisher. But then once you're sort of into the industry, the publisher wants more books from you, and so they sort of sign you preemptively, or they're harping on you like, hey, when's the next book? We'd love to read it. We might publish that one too. And so you're in more of a pressure situation to keep writing and meet deadlines. Your first book doesn't have a deadline. It's sort of a labor of love, you never know if it's going to be published, so you could put all of your care and attention and hopes and dreams into that book, and then the rest ones get sidetracked, sidelined, or hindered in some sort of way regarding expectations, or do they live up to the first book, or does the publisher like it, or am I now pigeonholed into a certain genre? There's different environments that come with writing a debut versus writing your fifth novel, right? I think you can really see the care that went into this book. It's very well fleshed out. All of the little details really come together. There's just like a lot of care in the script, and in the little storylines, in the little beats, in the little through lines of the details throughout. You can tell that a lot of care went into this book. So anyway, I'll get into the premise. This is about a teenage girl, 16, 17. This 16-year-old girl named Caitlin, whose best friend has committed suicide. And so she's pretty depressed about this, and everyone sees her differently. It starts at the beginning of a new school year, and everyone looks at her like, oh, that's Ingrid's best friend, and Ingrid is dead now. So people are treating her differently. People are asking what happened, asking if she knew, and she's reasonably struggling, both academically and socially and familially. Her family notices that she's depressed and, are obviously concerned for her. She doesn't really have a lot of other friends. She has some other friends, but they're not like her best friend like Ingrid, and she's sort of shutting people down. She's really into photography. Her and Ingrid were both into photography, but Ingrid was sort of better at it and like a promising star and was going to go to college for it. And so she feels like her photography teacher is sort of disappointed that Ingrid is the one that died and not Caitlin. The photography teacher is treating her differently because she's also grieving. Caitlin doesn't feel like as welcome in that environment, or it doesn't feel right without Ingrid, and so she's slacking on her assignments and like intentionally doing bad. She ends up meeting a new girl in school named Dylan, who is a lesbian. That's the sapphic part of this book. Caitlin, the main character, is not a lesbian, but this side character who she gets to know is. And for 2009, this is great representation. I would have loved to read this book in 2009 when I was a freshman in high school, and my school libraries had almost no books about lesbians. Even my public libraries had like almost nothing about lesbians, and all the books they did have were like old-ass, boring, Rita Mae Brown, Jeanette Winterson, old kind of classic gay books that I was not particularly into as a 13-year-old trying to find books about gay people for the first time. I really wanted like contemporary gay books about teenagers, and I didn't have a lot of access to that as a child. So if this had been in my school library in 2009, I would have loved this. I would have eaten this up. The lesbian she's just a side character. She gets a fair amount of screen time, but she has a girlfriend who goes to another school. They're really cute together. They're very happy. They have a really nice relationship that gets brought up, and I like the way the main character interacts with the lesbian. Like, she doesn't really care that she's a lesbian. She doesn't know any gay people, really. She doesn't have any experience with that community, but she just, like, doesn't care. She sees Dylan and her girlfriend together, and she's like, they're a really cute couple. They're sort of like hashtag couples goals for the main character. She ends up getting... Can you move? The main character ends up getting a romance storyline with this boy in her class who likes her. And she looks to Dylan and Maddie's relationship as like what she aspires to be, which is just really cute. And there are some moments of homophobia, like when she moves to this new school, there's a rumor that she got kicked out of her old school for making out with a girl in the bathroom. Some of the other kids are like, oh, she's a lesbian, and say it like a bad thing. But the main character's like, fuck off. Doesn't ascribe to that, and the bullying is minimal and shown to be like a judgmental bad thing. There is a point where the main character actually confronts someone who's like, oh, you're hanging out with the new girl? Like, there's lots of rumors about her. You don't want people to get the wrong idea about you. Caitlin's just like, it's not nice to start rumors. Basically tells this girl off and sticks up for Dylan, which is really nice. This is just like a really sweet little side representation. Again, I would have loved this in 2009. I didn't know this book existed in 2009. So the representation's really nice, especially for teenagers at this time when there wasn't a lot of gay representation in books. So to just have this happy little lesbian couple and them becomes totally standard best friends with the main character, and there's no inkling of like, oh, does she have a crush on me? No hesitation, not a big deal at all. They're just friends. And the lesbian's girlfriend isn't like suspicious that she's hanging out with this girl at school that she just met. It's like, oh, is she cheating on me? No, it's just like they're just friends, and they just hang out like normal friends, and it's great. And Caitlin goes to meet some of Dylan's old friends from her old school, who are like a group of, actually I don't remember if any of them were queer, but like she talks about like, wow, these guys are so cool from another school, and I'll never be this cool, and she really likes hanging out with them. I actually don't remember if they were queer, but that's kind of like the vibes, right? Like you go to meet your one lesbian friend's other group of queer, possibly friends, and she's just cool with that, and she doesn't mind hanging out with these people at all. But anyway, there's not a lot of plot to spoil in this book. It's very character driven. It's about Caitlin's journey to overcome her grief and make amends with it, and just continue her life moving forward and honoring her best friend, but moving on and not getting stuck in her life. And there's just a lot of good plot points that show her progress, her willingness to make new friends with Dylan and this boy she likes, and her photography. Again, she's like sabotaging herself at first, then she grows and becomes more genuinely invested in her photography over the course of the book. She has this thing where she's building a tree house in her backyard. She does that. That is a way for her to sort of work through her emotions and build something with her hands, and she likes that. She has Ingrid's journal, which has like documentation of the last, months of her life and such. And she reads that slowly. She'll read, like, she limits herself to an entry a day because she doesn't want to run out of things to read. I thought that the representation of grief in this was quite authentic and really well done. I had a friend who died, and I was going through like all of my old messages with him and limiting myself to reading only a certain amount at a time because I didn't want to run out of them and have like no more of him to revisit or learn about. So I thought the grief was really well done, and they felt like real teenagers. It was just good. It was well done. I liked these characters. I liked the premise. I really felt for these people. The situation felt very real, very authentic, just poignant, well done. I'm gonna compare this to We Are Okay, That is about a college freshman dealing with the grief of losing her grandfather. So it's kind of a similar thing, but that book is way worse. Nothing happens in that book. It is all internalized, and the main character just thinking about how sad she is and how her life is terrible. And it takes place over Christmas vacation, where she's alone in the dorms and literally like no one is there except for her friend who comes to visit her. And so it is just like very isolated and internal and boring. This book isn't that, because it is very much about her interactions with other people. She's going to school, she's going to class, she's talking to her family, she's making new friends. Things are actually happening. There's like an actual plot. Again, it's not like plot based, like it's not like this event leads to this event leads to this event. It's just like a series of how her everyday life sort of shapes in the wake of this tragedy, and how she creates a new normal and gets back on track. But she's actually talking to people. They're actually seeing. It's not just her in her head. There's a lot of external factors actually influencing her actions, and she's not isolated, and that makes for a significantly more entertaining story for sure. And even like the way she interacts with people, like she doesn't want to be super close friends with Dylan at first, because she thinks she's a shit friend. Like she feels kind of guilty. Like, could she have stopped Ingrid from killing herself? How did she not like notice the signs? How did she not realize how serious this was? And so she's like scared to be friends with Dylan because she thinks she'll be a shitty friend. And so when Dylan invites her out, like she responds negatively or brushes her off, and that causes a rift in their relationship. And even just the way she interacts with people says a lot about her mental state, in a much more interesting way than just a character in their head talking about their mental state. So it's a good show rather than tell premise. It's also, I talked about the little details, the way she builds friendships, the way she builds this treehouse, the way she works on her photography. There's also just this little detail about coffee. She sort of just started drinking coffee, but she doesn't quite like it. Every time she goes to a cafe with her friend, she orders a different drink, and she's like, I don't like this one, I don't like this one either. Then at the end of the book, she finally finds a coffee order she likes. And it's little things like that that really feel like a complete story, that really make it feel like character growth, and like all this time has passed, and she's coming to learn about herself and understand who she is, and who she is now, and who she has been. Just little details like that, where you can see that the author really cared about the manuscript, really remembered things, and wasn't just writing throwaway lines, and just actual care. Just care and attention to detail. Those little things really can make a book feel very vibrant, and can push that over the edge from like a 4-star read into a 5-star read. And I gave this 5 stars. Maybe that's on the basis of every other Nina LaCour book is underwhelming in a way. But I think this genuinely was like a really good book. Again, I think I would have loved this if I had read it in 2009. I still really liked it now, and related to some of the things, and appreciated some of the themes, and just the way it was handled. But yeah, definitely my favorite Nina LaCour book. I have 2 more. There's Yerba Buena, and then Watch Over Me. All of these titles are terrible. I don't like any of these titles. They're like nothing burgers. We Are Okay, okay? You Know Me Well. I guess that one's not the worst. Yerba Buena's, I don't know what that means, so that's more interesting than any of the others. Watch Over Me. They're just like really vague phrases, aren't they? Hold Still. Sure. I mean, the title works for this. It's about her like stuck in stasis. There's another detail about her getting her license. Like, she was on track to get her license. She's been studying, and she just turned 16, I guess, and then her friend killed herself, and she's like stuck. And she doesn't get her license until the end of the book. Spoilers, but like you know that's gonna happen. You know the character growth. You know the arc is her gonna be moving on and getting unstuck. So she is holding still in her life in a lot of ways, and then she has to learn not to do that and to move forward. So it's a good title, I guess. It's just not like interesting as a phrase in and of itself. I don't know. I like a book with like a really funky title. How to Get a Girlfriend When You're a Terrifying Nightmare Monster, or The Duke Steals Hearts and Other Body Parts. I don't know. I like a sort of concrete title that really gives you a visual or really stands out. The phrase Hold Still is like Terrible for SEO. If you just search Hold Still, I don't know if this book is the first thing that would come up, but who cares? I don't think that's what she was thinking about while writing this. But yeah, a really good debut. I really like this. Not sure the other Nina LaCour books are gonna hold up now that I've read an actual good one. So maybe I should have read this last, but I didn't know it was good. Sometimes debuts are actually worse because over time you grow as a writer, and so you can look back on some author's debut and be like, oh, they hadn't honed all their craft yet. This is the opposite. This is a really good debut, and I haven't loved anything else from her as much since. But who cares, right? Like, she's been publishing for 16 years. I don't think she cares if I liked her debut from 2009. Or thought the 2014 book, Everything Leads to You, was just okay. Like, she doesn't give a fuck what I think. She seems to be doing alright. They redid the cover for this, like, they released an edition later, several years later. And the updated cover is significantly better than the original. I did think the main character would be a lesbian from the cover, but it's not. She's not. I mean, there's nothing romantic about the cover, but it's just two women on a Nina LaCour book, so I'm like, obviously those are lesbians. I do like a lot of Nina LaCour's covers. She sort of has like a coherent style. It might be the same person doing her covers, I don't know. I'm just yapping at this point. But yeah, pretty good book about grief. Pretty good queer teenage representation for 2009 in a very palatable package. Again, I could have seen this in like my high school library. I feel like they would have put this in there, and then I would have gobbled it up and read it like 5 times. So I'm sad that I discovered it 16 years later, but I am glad that I read it, and I did enjoy it even as an adult. So good book. 5 stars from Nina LaCour. Who would have thought? That's mean. You're okay, Nina LaCour. You're not watching this, but you're okay.